All right, so we are back. Should be good to go. All right, link is in the chat, and I forgot to put it in the description. I will do that as well. All right, link is also in the description, folks, as of right now. So get that, and then going to, let's see here. Let's see, I could modify that real quick. Okay. Secure the other video. All right, so we are now back and good to go. All right, so anybody wants to join, links in there. But we're waiting for everybody to hop on over to this new stream. The one of the subjects I thought would be fun to discuss tonight is the simulation theory or hypothesis, and basically that being that we are based on evidence, based on deduction, and a variety of other aspects. Is it reasonable to conclude that we're actually existing inside of a simulation? And obviously you can extrapolate out that logic. Therefore, if we're inside of a simulation, who is running the simulation? So then it gets into all sorts of things of, like higher consciousness, universal consciousness, the doubling, if we're no longer bound by the linear controls, then would linear doubling obviously result in increased computation ability and therefore consciousness as well. And therefore, it's the rational conclusion that we're basically living inside of the matrix, and just kind of see where things go from there. But earlier today, the reason I wanted to discuss it was earlier today I listened to and watched 4 or 5 different multiple PhD actually led lectures, discussions about this topic. And one of the interesting things that came out of the conversation that really struck with me was the term naturalistic theology in relation to simulation theory. And like I said, what really made me want to have an open mic discussion about this topic was this premise that, okay, so PhDs, physicists and philosophers and cosmologists and all these different folks are starting to contemplate this premise that when you're getting down to on the quantum level, there's an aspect of almost like pixelation that is in play, and it's not that unrealistic, especially as our technologies grow and our ability to create virtual reality and things of that nature continues to be expanded. This premise of us existing inside of another universe or another plane of existence is no longer some completely unrealistic, non-plausible concept to be really taking seriously. But then it ultimately leads you to either somehow this simulation on all the computation requirements that would be in play for this to occur, either some have to have occurred naturally, which isn't really a plausible conclusion based on what we now know about technology, or there has to be some, whether it's a god in the context from we view it from a religious perspective, or just the entity that has the ability outside of our current plane of existence to create this one. And what I find really ironic about all of this is, from the hardcore atheists, what we hear ad nauseum is this premise that there is nothing but, on our side of the equation, we have nothing but God up the gaps mindset to explain evolution and just creation in general, cosmology. Oh, you're just God of the gaps. I'm like, okay, cool. So PhDs in the secular realm are jumping to, we're in a simulation based on the evidence. So all I have to say is, if atheist secular research PhDs are, with all seriousness, are publishing papers on the entire premise and their reason, they're deducing the entire concept of the simulation theory. I mean, if they're publishing this, so they've got a naturalistic theology of the gaps, and we have a religious God of the gaps. Like, which I'm not sure which side of this equation is like, who's taking the greater leap here. But that's general overview of the concept. Jungle, welcome to the round 2 of this stream. Appreciate you coming on, following us on over. And I don't know if you heard what I was talking about on the simulation theory.
Yeah, I got a question about that. If this was a simulation, wouldn't there be evidence of it being a simulation, um, like an underlying structure that is simulated, just like any video simulation?
Well, and that's where, yes, theoretically, and that's where the everything is information question comes into the equation. And that's part of the reason many of them, at least the ones I was listening to today, they straight up said it. Like, we are being forced to come to the realization that basically everything is information, and
Oh,
is
well,
happening on a
yeah.
binary. There's a binary code level that's happening. Therefore, if this is the case, then not
Well,
only is it a potentially rational deduction based on, just the logic and the rules and all these kind of things, we're actually seeing the evidence of the operating code. And so it's not like a crazy leap of faith. It's
what kind of operating code is it? Is it just the kind of power structure, or it's like the elements in the universe that are basically different levels and kinds of power, amounts of power that do different things, you know?
well, there's that, and then just the information question in general, and then the representation. What is information? Ultimately it's the representation of meaning, through symbols, impulses, and signs.
Right,
And
because they'll say like a wallet. If a wallet went into the black hole, the information's on the outside of the black hole, and you can extract the information and reproduce the wallet, which made no sense to me.
right. Caleb says, if we're in a simulation, the simulator would make sure we don't know we were in a simulation. Caleb, I would have to somewhat agree and also somewhat disagree. So if the end objective is for the simulator to see if the intelligent agents that it's created inside of this environment can reach the next level of consciousness, then giving them the capability to reach that conclusion is not like, I don't know where you put that barrier in place. If your end objective was for them to gain the realization that there is something beyond this current plane of existence. And but one of the other really interesting things that also struck me in one of the lectures I was listening to is they got into what I'm about to say is very interesting in the relation to one of some of the standard atheist arguments of the laws of physics are nothing special, and physics, the laws of physics and chemistry are no big deal, etc., etc. And what they were actually getting into, which I thought was very fascinating, was and this is specifically in relation to the whole emergence, and things are just emerge. And one of the points they were making was that emergence is not possible without the laws of physics and chemistry. Therefore, you actually have to look at the laws of being the foundational building blocks before the atoms and the quarks and all those different parts. Even on the quantum level, the laws are actually the ultimate foundational components to existence. And I appreciate that and recognize as a fundamental, but to hear it coming out of secular atheist PhD physicists and cosmologists, talking about this premise, and
yeah, but
it really leads you to the okay. Well, then you have to, if that is the case, if that is the case, then you have to account for where the laws came from. There is no, and we discuss that in philosophy all the time, but like they're coming to the same conclusion, right? Like, oh, we cannot avoid that this is reality.
And what structure does the law have? Is it a force? Is it a mold? I mean, how are the quarks and everything, going into their perspective of shapes and forms and properties with the properties they have, and all combining together to make hard matter?
Exactly. I mean, it gets very very interesting. John Lang, welcome. Appreciate you joining the stream, man. How you doing?
I'm having a great day. How are you guys?
I'm good.
Hey, can't complain.
I don't think I've seen you before. I don't know.
John's in the chat on a regular basis. I think you've hopped on streams a couple times, but
yeah, just a few. Mostly just ask questions and try to expand my knowledge a little bit. Watched that video by Raw Matt today. That was pretty good. Didn't get through all of it, but that was enlightening. Can I just ask you guys a question about that real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
I had never heard of the surf monkey theory. Now, is that real?
Are you talking about? Are you referring to the? This is how a monkey's got from Africa to South America.
Yes. No, I had never heard that one before, and I thought I'd heard most.
Not only is that not only is yes, that's a theory. That was actually doubled down on this year by the Smithsonian and the academics in association with them. There was an article published, I believe it was July of this year, on again doubling down on the raft or the surf theory.
Because apparently a monkey was found fossilized with a vegetation mat or something like that.
Well, that's all the evidence I need.
I think that's that would be evidence of a global flood for us.
Yeah, I mean, it just sounds like to me that, you could win that one in a court case right there. The monkeys came over on a bunch of bogs.
On a mat,
100 miles or so.
Vegetable mat, yeah.
No problem.
Yeah, I actually Googled it. So the narrowest or the closest distance between Africa and South America is 1,600 miles. Okay. That's the narrowest position.
But would they argue that because it was like 30 million years ago, it might have been a little closer?
Potentially, but per their own model, you're not talking about much. I mean, you're talking about not much. I mean,
you know what my model is, right? That it broke apart 100 years after the global flood, and South America broke apart from Africa.
Okay. I'm still kind of making my mind up on that one a little bit.
So the animals in my model would have walked from Africa to South America, and there is representatives of the same animal both in South America and Africa, surprisingly.
How exactly does that fit together with the way that Central America is? Every time I'm looking at that map on Pangea, how does that just kind of form there later on the last couple
Central America?
Oh, hey, quick sidebar. Quick sidebar. Now, according to their timeline, it was 140 million years ago, so the monkeys weren't even around yet. So it was already separated before the monkeys surfed. Sorry, go ahead, guys.
Oh no, so I understand. I'm just saying that it was separated, but it may have been a couple hundred miles or 1,000 miles closer than it is right now, or I'm sorry, than it would have been then.
Yeah. Well, I was thanking James Downer today because he told me about the glacial markings in India that go from south to north from the time it was at the South Pole. And I thanked him for it because that verifies that the continents broke apart 100 years after the global flood.
Oh, real quick, guys, before I forget about this. So one of the other really interesting things that struck me about the simulation theory was, so one of the most common talking points here from the atheists is, the standard "who designed the designer" argument, right? And then the infinite regress, right? And it's extrapolated from that. So one of the interesting things about you can extrapolate from the simulation theory is, okay, so let's say that is where we are. And
what's the difference?
Well, here's the thing. One of the conundrums that they put forth and supposedly counter is, you'd have to have infinite computation power, right? Well, you got to think about this. If we actually are in a simulation, just like in virtual reality that we do right now, just because you're seeing something from a distance does not mean that it's actually being rendered at that moment at the same level of details as it does when you're right next to it, right? So if you really contemplate this, A, the vast majority of the universe is empty space, right? B, we're not there. And C, none of us are having to observe everything simultaneously, right? So, and this obviously gets into some of the quantum mechanics stuff and, wave function collapse problems, all that kind of stuff. But if you think about it from the perspective that literally not everything is having to be rendered at the same time in the level of detail that will be necessary if you're like right in front of it, or as you're getting closer to something, you don't actually have to have infinite computation going on. So you actually completely annihilate the infinite regress argument that's made by the standard talking points from the atheists. And it's always rather fascinating. So now you're talking about this in the context of an argument I've made on a regular basis. It's like, it doesn't matter if the whole "who designed the designer" argument completely goes out the window at that point, because there may be something else in this other plane that we have to account for if we get there, but it has absolutely nothing to do with whether or not it is the rational conclusion that in order for this one to exist, there must be an external entity that started it. And anyway, I thought it was rather interesting to really contemplate that aspect from the more philosophical discussions that we get into on a regular basis. It kind of annihilates some of the standard atheist talking points.
You've given that one a lot more thought than I have. I've never given that any serious, I just don't even think about it. It's like God is God, and he, is sovereign. He wasn't created by anything else. I'm kind of over it.
Well, no, I agree with you in the context of, at this point, individually, I agree with you. But I'm saying it was interesting to me to listen to these secular academics basically completely destroying one of the most standard atheist talking points. And obviously they weren't actually doing that on purpose. They were just discussing the theory of the evidence and the premise, and we got the infinite computation problem, but actually this actually solves that. And I was thinking, as I was listening to the lectures, it was kind of cracking me up. I'm just sitting there thinking, man, this is just utterly obliterating arguments that I've listened to over and over and over again from the atheists, and they obviously aren't even realizing that one of their supposedly strongest positions is actually getting debunked by their
So-
fellow non-believing scientists.
So what's bothering me is that whether or not the universe can understand the information that's in our wallets in order to reproduce it. Because what if the universe doesn't understand information? Or how can it reproduce a wallet with everything, with a credit card and everything that's in the wallet?
You talking about outside of their universe or inside of the universe?
Well, they're saying that with the information theory that everything's information, you would have a wallet near a black hole. The wallet would be absorbed by the black hole, and the information would be around the surface. Now, I think they've discredited this thing by now themselves, but they were they were saying that the information from the wallet is along the outside of the black hole, and that it could be reproduced. That everything that was in the wallet, including the information that was in the wallet, would be reproduced.
Reproduced in how? Like what form? Like another wallet?
That's what they said, but it made no sense to me.
Yeah, but I mean, do we have to honestly entertain every single crackpot intellectual anarchy that these guys engage in?
These are the mainstream scientists, though. These are the top-notch scientists talking about it.
All right, well, I'm not impressed by that at all.
Sal,
Well, I wasn't.
welcome
I
back,
wasn't
man.
impressed by Stephen Hawking's gravity as being the cause of the universe either. But go ahead.
I don't know if you talked about it. Did you see the movie Simulation Hypothesis with Ron Garrett in it?
I
think
haven't
so.
seen that one. I've watched his lecture that he gave at Google. I assume it's very similar to probably what they were talking about, the simulation theory. Yeah. I thought it was kind of interesting, just the premise. I mean, I'd heard about it, but today was the first time I'd like actually taken the time to listen to in-depth PhD discussions and lectures on the topic. And like, I don't know if you heard what I was saying to the guys, it was kind of cracking me up how the conclusions that are being reached utterly obliterate some of the most standard atheist talking points. And I mean, to me, when you couple, here's what I find interesting about that is if you really couple that with the hologram theory for the two-dimensional hologram theory, that gets very interesting to me, and also solves the computation load problem. But
well, if you've been around the atheist talking points for very long, you'll see that their talking points tend to morph and change with time. So, anyways.
Oh yeah, when they have to metamorphosize their worldview every couple of years, because whatever their standard positions are get.
That's the only thing that evolves is their talking points.
Yeah, it's that's very true. Well, and here's the thing: they really just gets me on all the topics of emergence, and heck, even if you can overcome, thermodynamics issues and all these different and entropy and all these different things, even if you can overcome those, you still run into the reality of what they're discovering with their evolutionary algorithms. And it's like there's a peak at where there's any level of improvement, and then there's like quantified degradation. Like they're observing this in all of these computer simulations that they're doing, and like people are starting to write papers about this of like, okay, so we keep trying this and it's failing and we're reaching peak and we keep trying to do this over. And it's like what's the definition of insanity, right? Like doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. Well, like now you've done thousands and thousands and thousands of these simulations and keep reaching the exact same conclusion that, cool, I can have a short little spike in improvement and then it's a guaranteed degradation every single time.
Were these simulations in genetics or computer programming?
Computer programming.
Okay.
I think they're doing simulations on them too with genetics as well, but these are like computer simulations. Sometimes they're genetics, but oftentimes it's software. And I was reading one that was published this year. It was a like 50-something page paper. It took me like 3 days to read through it in general, and that was the entire point they reached. Was okay, we've gone through and reviewed all the stuff to date, and the end conclusion is basically we're wasting time, because we find the same outcome every time. We've been trying this for 30 years at this point, if not longer, and now that we actually have high level computation capabilities, we're finding out to an even greater and greater extent that the whole evolutionary algorithm premise fails.
I could have told them that a long time ago.
Sal's been over there nodding his head a little bit, listening to me. Are you agreeing, or is that you agreeing or disagreeing with me, Sal?
Yes, and some of these things are just so bleeding obvious. Someone was crowing about how evolutionary algorithms were able to optimize a wind turbine, and I dinged some. Can I share my screen? I'm going to share the picture of or you could just find one, a vertical wind turbine. See if I could. I'll paste the image here so you could see it.
Oh, Richard Dawkins had a model of a wing a long time ago that he kind of like tried to say that a long time ago.
So this is a picture of a vertical wind turbine. And so the evolutionary algorithm was going with a regular propeller wind turbine, and it optimized it for that. And the guy thought he had me, because he said, look how well evolutionary algorithms work. And I said, well, that doesn't work in the vertical dimension, because it didn't find the solution like this. No matter how many times it would go through, it was stuck in kind of a one way. It couldn't do out of the box thinking. And so if some people have seen wind turbines, they're just these big propellers, but that's not the only way to build it. And there are advantages to these vertical ones. The evolutionary algorithm, they kept running it. It would never find a solution like that. It doesn't do very good out of the box things. I'm just like, that's so bleeding obvious.
Yeah. Well, and the other portion of it for me that just, I don't understand how they refuse to comprehend this is, intelligent agents had to create the algorithm to be able to do the analysis, and they had to insert the data and the requirements. I mean, it's like you had to create it in order to run it. And I know they try to come up, oh, we're just simulating nature and all this. It's like, yeah, no, you still had to come up with it. It's like, I don't know. What I find very interesting, I mean, there's also stuff this year from computer scientists and such talking about this in terms of artificial intelligence. And, talking about we're not, the whole premise of AI gaining the level of, outside to use Sal's phrase, outside the box thinking and creation of new innovative solutions is not realistic in the same aspect of the way we solve problems and come up with new solutions and ideas and such. Like it's just not plausible. Yes, there can be things done with, yes, they can be vastly superior in relation to hyper-specific tasks, different functions. Yes, can be superior to humans in general, but in terms of like the macro, not even close. And that's one of the things that always fascinates me about the talking points we hear all the time. It's like people inside the research fields clearly recognize that, like, our neural nets, the neural net in our brain and all biological organisms, is so vastly superior to anything that we have come up with. I mean, our stuff is not even in the same category of I'm talking about our human attempts at neural networks and stuff are just a joke compared to what's happening in biological systems. But somehow
And,
that just emerged.
and it's just a machine. Our bodies are just a machine. That's all it is a machine. And what's our conscience? What's our will? Where's that coming?
Well, I say something I watched today that was very interesting. They were talking about, with the increase in MRI technology and fMRI and all these different types, eventually people will just be able to, if they can hold themselves still long enough, we will map out their entire brain neural network, and then we'll just be able to download them into a computer. And I'm like, get out of town, man! Like you think that just eventually we're going to be able to map, because we can map out the connections, that somehow is going to, like, okay, fine. So you mapped out the network. Now explain how the data is stored. Oh, wait, you don't know. You don't even know how the data, we don't even truly know how the data is stored in that neural network in the brain that enables the consciousness. Like, we don't know how this works. Like, we don't even know how it's stored. We can't even comprehend how the data is stored. And now we're coming to the realization that, oh, wait, holy crap, it looks like there's all sorts of quantum function that's happening inside of neurons that's explaining how we're being able to process information so quickly in our brains. Like, oh, man, go figure. And like, so you're telling me we can't hold our quantum computers can't stay in a quantum state for more than fractions of a second. And you're telling me that we're going to be able to figure out how all the processes are occurring in the room temperature, wet environment of our brain, and we're going to be able to do it while our current systems have to do it at as close to absolute zero as possible. Yeah, okay, cool. Keep dreaming on the fact that we're somewhere close to, and even if somehow at some point we did reach being close to being able to replicate it, that means we would have to be so advanced technologically and the level of knowledge requirement in order to pull that off would be at such a high level. It's like, cool, congratulations, you are now God in the formation of a artificial neural network equivalent to human. And
knowing every possibility.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry for my long-winded diatribe there, but that just amazes me to listen to folks go on their tangents about how this is like acting like this is not that big of a deal. And either you're an ignorant fool or you're living in a fantasy land. I don't know which one.
I put in the chat what I believe is the video that had Ron Garrett in it. And it was actually shown at Liberty University. And one young lady in my private apologetics kind of Bible study, she pointed this out. And it's like, wow, this is a great video on God, because it actually takes the simulation hypothesis and just kind of takes it from a different angle and says, this is some of how they arrived at this could alternatively be interpreted as pointing to the Christian God. And they're just, it's like they're really close, but they just sort of missed it because they have certain metaphysical commitments. And that the amazing thing is I saw this the day before I debated Ron Garrett. And I actually wanted to talk to him more. I'm just like, so you gravitate toward these views? I mean, that's really close to intelligent design. Don't you realize it?
Well, that's what really struck me when he first came around for debates, because I had years ago, I watched his lecture at Google, at the Google Tech Talk. And I remember when I watched it, the entire time listening through it, all the way up until the very end, I was like, am I listening to an intelligent design and like quasi-theist advocate at Google right now? Like, I was stunned, like, and then at the very end, of course, he like did a complete 180. But I was like, okay, how did you just do this entire lecture and that's your conclusion? Like,
well, yeah, I've seen people read the Bible and turn around and say the exact opposite of what they just read.
Yep.
So it's mental gymnastics is a thing, It's like...
And I had a question for you, John.
Yeah.
Because it's sort of related to what I was you know, I asked the three guys in my discussion on radiometric dating, and I said, would you guys be willing to accept, what if you were healed in the name of Jesus? Would you follow him the rest of your life? And when I was saying that, I actually thought of you, and I wanted to ask your reflections. I mean, it kind of shocks me that some people can experience a miracle of God and say, no, I'm gonna attribute it to multiverse, or I'm gonna try to find a naturalistic explanation. It's like, maybe if God did that for you, he's trying to get your attention. I mean, what would it take? So I just wanted to just get your thoughts on these people, because I've asked them, what if a miracle happened to you like that? And I'm kind of shocked. Some of them said, no, they're not going to serve God.
Well, the level of desperation to find a quote unquote natural solution or explanation is mind boggling. So, for example, myself as an example, so the cavernous malformation, which ultimately resulted in my brain hemorrhage, the type of that I had is oh man, I had a brain freeze late nights. 0.03% of people are born with them. And then though usually the vast majority never hemorrhage. And then the dimensions of my hemorrhage have a less than 2% survival rate. So not only rarity in even having it in the first place, right? And then for that minimal amount of survival, we're not talking about how much damage is done. We're just talking about surviving, not dropping dead instantly, right? 2%. And then of that, almost everybody has massive damage, right? For hemorrhages the size of mine, right? And then the majority of my hemorrhages in the Broca region of the brain, which controls verbal communication. So I've got this rare outlier in multiple levels, and then I had no tangible cognitive deficit and didn't lose my verbal ability, even though that's where the majority of the damage was. So when you extrapolate all those things, it's like, okay, is there it's same thing with why I get so entertained by like the abiogenesis discussions of like, yeah, okay, so you can come up with an equation that says, yes, there is some ridiculous level of probability where this could happen and life could form. Okay, fine, whatever. It's the same thing with my survival, right? Like the neurologist and the neurosurgeon, everybody couldn't believe I was alive, let alone I driven myself to the hospital, let alone that I could talk. And then I have major surgery and I have no therapy after the fact and no cognitive deficit.
And that you had confidence that God would take you through it.
Yep. And I joke about this all the time, but I am literally a higher ranked chess player now than I was before my brain surgery. I don't operate as fast as I did. Like I used to have ridiculous brain speed and I had a partially photographic memory, and I don't have that. It's fractured now.
That's this thing called age.
Well, and age kicks in too. Yep. But outside of that, like to still be able to even live a normal life after all that, I mean, it's like, okay. Oh wait, and then we have to tack it on the fact that all of that occurred almost 10 years to the day of the promise I had made God in college. Like, okay, so I've got improbability after improbability for my even survival, and then for it to happen at the time of a promise, a linear or a temporal promise that I had made 10 years prior, and then it all happens. I'm called on the carpet at that moment. So to me, it's a sure, if you want to just believe in ridiculous improbabilities, okay, sure, there's some random naturalistic explanation for all that occurring in that timeline. Or you can say, yeah, more rational to conclude that I was being called on the carpet.
Yeah, and see that's where I'm at. I actually, I was naive enough 2 years ago to think if I asked, I mean, I was actually shocked. I said, wouldn't you follow Jesus the rest of your life? I just said, you know, I wasn't that direct. I said, this is what I would do. What would you do? And I was actually shocked. These people say, no, they're not. And I, you know, they were gracious enough to say, to grant the hypothetical that they were that blind beggar that was healed and who had no options in life. And then suddenly they see someone telling them that,
I honestly,
he's the Messiah. I'm just like, and you're going to walk away. I'm just like,
I do.
God has extended grace to you guys and you're just going to throw it away. It's like, okay, now when that happened, I said, now I get their mentality. I didn't see it. It was so blatant at that point. I said, now I see the other side in a totally different light. So there's no argument.
I think
good
there's
enough.
also something else to be considered too, is there is a dramatic level of ego in play with the atheist worldview. It has to be there, whether it's real confidence or fake confidence, right? Like they have to double down and create this wall of illusion in their own mind in order to justify their worldview and to convince themselves that all of the evidence that surrounds them on a daily basis for every aspect of their existence, which screams out the existence of God, they have to convince themselves that everything they're seeing is not true. Just like Dawkins said, you know, even though everything looks designed, just tell yourself it's not, right? That's the epitome of what's happening in the atheist community. So in line with what you're talking about, Sal, yes, they say that, but and from their current perspective, I don't doubt for a second that is what they believe, right? However, I do wager that, not all, obviously, but I wager many of them in the moment of truth might change their mind, you know. And for example, the ones that talk about like, you know, God could appear before me and I still wouldn't believe. You know what I call bovine scatology, because you're standing in the presence of God. I'm just going to go ahead and go out on a limb and suggest that perhaps you will be overwhelmed, because no human can stand in the presence of God and not feel the power. I mean, that's a fact that they will unfortunately realize at some point in their existence, because it's the ultimate unescapable outcome of standing before the great white throne. But take it to a different level of that level of fear. I mean, I won't go all the details, but there was a time in college where I found myself being taken out to the woods at gunpoint, and that moment of truth. I've contemplated it over the years. Obviously, I escaped, but that whole experience, I've thought about that in like the aspect of fear, and that moment of realization that you might no longer exist. And I think many people, especially in Western civilization, haven't experienced that moment, or it's been fleeting, and they haven't truly had to question, like, am I going to cease to exist in the real down and dirty, not just a theoretical conversation while they're sipping coffee and hanging out with their buddies, but the literal. I think that's probably one of the reasons we see such a different perspective in a lot of third world countries, because many of them have faced death on a daily basis and are forced to appreciate and realize and feel and truly appreciate the protection of God.
Amen. Amen.
and looking for survival too. I mean, looking to subsist off of meager resources too sometimes. But a lot of times these atheists are actively looking for a way out of not believing in God. And like you said, if like doubting Thomas, Jesus appeared before them and said, look at, put your hands in my side, see the holes, and doubting Thomas, who couldn't believe, obviously did believe at that moment.
Well, and the funny thing is that doubting Thomas, this goes back to my point about when you're standing in the presence, your perspective changes. He talked a big game, right?
Yeah.
And at the moment of truth, he wasn't even, he was like, I don't even need to touch. I get it. I'm in. And the guy's like, no. And you're like, it was, I've always found that rather entertaining. It's like the literal, no. Back up your BS, bro. Let's go. Put your hand in the hole, in the nail hole, man. Go ahead. You talk this big game. I'm calling you on the carpet, And the other thing you have to think about too, from perspective of doubting Thomas, right? Like, so not only has he been talking trash and saying that Jesus is dead and he's going to refuse to believe, now not only is Jesus standing in front of him, the person he's been claiming is dead is calling him out on something that he's been saying, not in the presence of the person he's been saying it about. Right. So that's like a whole double whammy right there. And I mean, you can only imagine what the complete and utter like mental conundrum he was in of, well, I mean, and also the shame he had to be feeling too of like, what an idiot I've been. I've been talking all this stuff. I've been doubting. Now I'm getting, again, it was his moment of truth. Of course, in his context,
he was a skeptic. He was a skeptic.
And the irony for him too, and this is why I talk about the in relation to the atheist, right? Like, he was being a skeptic, and he'd been observing the miracles of Christ for 3 years, right? So for him to even be a skeptic says something, right? And
I'm wired like doubting Thomas. But one thing that I see is that he had a heart, he wanted to see it a certain way. And there's some of us who just need lots of assurance and coddling to help. And so that story means a lot to me, just personally, because he wasn't a skeptic like the Pharisees. It's a different kind of skeptic, kind of like Gideon.
He wasn't a hater.
Yeah, not a hater, because I've seen some of these atheist chats, and I just ask, okay, what would you do if you had all the evidence? They said they'd fight God. I'm just like, okay, wow, okay. Some of them said they'd rather go to hell than serve that God, and it's like, well, at least they're being really blunt. They're not beating around the bush about where they really are.
Yeah, because some of these people are actively fighting against the truth, and they just can't accept the reality. And, I've always believed in God myself, but coming to these discussions and everything about, the creation of God and biology has really even reinforced my belief in God even more than I ever had before, in spite of the fact that I never doubted once the existence of God in my life.
Yes, I've seen that. Guys, I'm running out of gas, and I really appreciate everyone that came out to my talk tonight. And thanks for all your support. And John, thanks for letting me come on your stream. I really, it's great hanging out with you.
Oh, it's always, man. Appreciate you coming, and enjoy the stream.
It's great talking to you.
You have a great night, man.
You too.
Great talking to you. So.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Let me see here. Let me delete
So John, how are you doing? No, I
I'm
mean
good.
John
Just
Wayne.
still listening. Just kind of surf on the computer, and this is my background noise right now. Some of the things you guys are talking about, I'm not real versed in, so I'm kind of just observing at the moment. I don't know a whole lot about it.
Are
we
you?
can pivot topics, man. What's something you'd be interested in talking about?
Yeah.
I got two things that are just kind of way in the back of my mind a little bit. One, did you ever get any more clarification on what exactly determinism is?
Determinism?
Yeah, what the atheists mean by they believe determinism. We talked about it, Maddox and I talked about it last time a few weeks ago. And I don't know that it's exactly what I think it is. You remember that at all, LPP, or not?
Yeah, I remember us discussing it. I mean, I think I want to say it's so hard. I mean, they changed their freaking perspective on it so many times. I think very often they're more reliant on like causal determinism, and that everything is obviously, I mean, it's cause, but necessitated by, I'm reading the definition here, necessitated by antecedent events and conditions together with the laws of nature. It's kind of one of their foundational
So
positions.
that would kind of involve the the deterministic outcome, or the necessity of the outcome being biology.
Yeah, but I mean, if they think that, do I have it right when they're saying that they think that the chemical reactions in their brain are completely determined and they have no choice of what to believe or to make a decision?
Sometimes.
Yeah, not all, but a very large percentage of them. Yeah, especially the YouTube atheists. I mean, they're desperate. They're desperate
why are they
to
arguing then.
And I don't think they even know what that means themselves.
Well, John, that's a very good question, which I have actually asked several determinism-focused atheists who don't believe in free will. And I'm like, so why are you arguing? And it's
like,
and I'm like, so you're saying that you were through lack, you have no free will, and yet you're arguing that there is no free will. Like,
right? And why?
This seems very ironic and rather it's a rather entertaining contradiction, in my opinion. But I don't know. To me, honestly, all of those arguments and all that topic is nothing but an escape mechanism, is what it ultimately boils down to. It's a desperate attempt to circumvent personal responsibility and ultimate accountability to a higher power. I mean, there's just no other way around it, in my opinion. I mean, because if you're going to argue that, oh, philosophically, this is what I think, but I'm okay with subjective morals and law and holding people accountable for their actions in the mortal realm, you're okay with that, but you don't think you actually have any free will.
Right. It's completely
like, this makes no sense. There's so many contradictions. It's I don't know.
Well, that's why it's hard for me to believe that that's actually what they mean by it. I don't want to just kind of go and do a debate with somebody and get it wrong, because they might say that oh, no, you have it all wrong. That's not exactly what we believe. We believe something else. And I just don't want to have it incorrect.
Yeah, well, they'll say
and
anyway.
Yeah, but and here's the thing, John. You have to remember with them, there's always going to be one that says, no, that's not what I think.
Yeah.
I mean, they all, and then, but the irony is, even though many of those, at least the ones I've interacted with, they say that, and then when you get them further into conversation, it's like, you literally just contradicted what you insisted.
It is what
is your position, and right. I mean, and here's the thing, in my opinion, when you really look at all the, they want to claim, prop logic arguments, or just heck, most of them don't even go that far, but they want to act like because you can come up with some outlier alternative explanation, and they say this, I've had them say this many times to me in debate. Well, as long as there is some other possible explanation, I don't believe yours. Or I'm not going to look at all the evidence that says this one is the correct conclusion. I'm going to say, no, there's some other possibility. Therefore, I can't reach a conclusion.
And then you ask them, what possibility is that? And they don't have an answer. They can't tell you what is the cause.
Yeah, I'm like, man, at this point, if you're always going to claim that you can't ever actually know what the heck is the answer, then why are you even talking to me? Why are we having these conversations? Why do you spend so much of your time, effort, and energy in debating a topic about something you, per your own admission, don't think you can ever reach a conclusion on, while claiming to be searching, but every time you potentially could find an answer, you're going to say it's not the answer. I mean, that's just like a endless, okay, congratulations, you're now in a mental black hole regarding the fundamentals of your existence intellectually. That's awesome. If that's not a defect in your cognitive approach, I don't know what is.
And if you go through and systematically answer every one of their questions, they'll turn around and say you didn't answer any of the questions.
Right. I mean, when I talk to people about it, like I have a friend, he's agnostic, and we always talk about this stuff when we're, going fishing on the way to the river or whatever. And I said, the way I understand it is, like, if you have baking soda and vinegar, they're going to react a predetermined way. They're completely indifferent. They neither want to react nor don't want to react. They don't have a choice. If you put them together, they have to do it. So no matter how many chemicals you put together, in what order you in, there's a predetermined way they have to react with each other. And the brain, if atheism is true, would be the exact same way. It absolutely just 100% has to do what the chemicals are predestined to do, and you cannot deviate from that. It is not possible. So what is their argument to counter that?
We have a standing joke with GE that says that it was just nucleic acids. It's just like Diet Coke.
Yeah, it's just like Diet Coke. That was a real beauty he had.
Well, I mean, I think, and this is where, just to be blunt, a gigantic portion of the internet atheists that we deal with, there's a reason a lot of the academics don't associate with them. Because they recognize the stupidity of some of these arguments. And I mean, it was kind of like in the whole simulation theory lectures I was listening to today. They were all discussing the conundrum of consciousness and how it has to be explained, and why, the simulation theory and stuff, different things of that nature started to, become plausible explanations for it. But it was like, okay, we have to account for this, right? And when we're looking at the computation that's occurring in order for all these things to happen, we can't just, anyway, long story short, the point is that there's all sorts of people in academia that are staunch atheists that recognize there's all sorts of potentially metaphysical conundrums that have to be addressed. And, the more we dive into science, the more the lines are getting blurred between the physical and the metaphysical. And it's being publicly stated, right? Like, this is a problem. And yet we, the most staunch, hardcore, angry atheists claim that, science is taking us further and further away from the premise of theism, or even deism. And I'm like, where are you guys getting your information from? Because it's all over the place. People are reaching the total opposite conclusion. and are actually having the proverbial CO Jones to come out publicly with it and just be like, okay, guys, we've been denying this for 100 years now, but we just can't anymore. It's obvious at this point that we have to at least start to address the fact that there's got to be something beyond this plane of existence in order to explain all this other stuff that we're gaining some insight into.
So how many high profile guys are actually doing that?
Lots.
You'd say lots?
Yeah, I mean, just talk to Joel. Joel is a scientist of some sort, and he speaks to scientists on a regular basis, and he says that all the real scientists are theists.
Well, I mean, publicly, it's not a gigantic number, but it is a growing number. And there have been more than a few, pretty famous folks that have made pivots. And then you've got people that are trying to bash, such as James Tour. I mean, the man is literally named one of the 50 most, I forget his which
Accomplished.
He's a biochemist, isn't he?
Yeah, 50, but on the planet, like one of the top 50 in the world. He's been quoted like 78,000 times in his papers. His papers have been quoted 78. The number keeps going up, but last time I think it was like 78,000 times. He's like one of the most quoted scientists in the history of the world.
Because of his success in nanotechnology,
right?
Accomplishments.
So when you like the YouTube atheists and the Professor Daves and such that claim they're just debunking people like him, it's like you're literally stating that one of the most accomplished, awarded, recognized, and published biochemists in the history of the planet, you're claiming that you know more than he does.
Is James too? I know he's a theist, but is he actually a Christian?
Oh yeah. He's a staunch, very staunch Christian.
Staunch Christian.
This is before he was. He got his
like,
degrees or after.
He's like an out there Christian. Out there. He's like.
No, he got saved his freshman year in college.
Okay.
And fast forward, probably I know he's in his 60s now, so 40 years later, I mean he's still going strong. But using him as an example, but there's other. I think he's also inspiring a lot. He personally has been inspiring different scientists to start coming out of the closet, if you will. And
because there are apparently there are a lot of closet theists in science.
I mean, academia, can be a professional suicide to come out publicly. But some of them are just starting to be like, you know what?
Yeah.
There's more than enough evidence to prove my case. And I'm going to go. And Sal talks about this sometimes. Some of the guys he works with that are, they've gone into, cancer research as an example. And it's like, I'm going to go be a badass cancer researcher. And the private companies will hire me because I'm an awesome I'm a good scientist, and I do great research, and it has profitable outcome. And at the end of the day, what I'm publishing is about tangible, repeatable stuff, not theory. I'm not going. Fine, I won't go down the theoretical, side of the equation. I'm going to go down to the practical application side of it, and it's starting to come into the, in that context, it's, what have you done for me lately? And if they're producing, they're good,
Yeah. You gotta have confidence in your work and the, the laws of science. Properties.
I'd say one of the things I've been thinking about quite a bit lately is, and I'm sure this is what I'm about to say is probably being done in the private equities sector, but I personally think that there needs to be a move to use equity crowdfunding to do cap raises for Christian researchers and be like, hey, let's go full bore. When you think about it in the context of the sheer volume, like you don't have to have extraordinary amounts of capital with the modern technology that we have now. You don't have to have extraordinary amounts of capital to be able to do ongoing research. And
Yeah, I'm going to do experiments in my garage.
yeah, and it's like, if Christians all came together, I say all, like lots of Christians, just for easy math purposes, you run a nationwide cap raise, and it's like, hey, we need 100,000 Christians, of which there's literally millions to choose from, right? In the United States, like, hey, all of you pony up $10, and we're gonna fund a research lab. I mean, like, that's not unrealistic, and
Yeah.
now you've got
Well,
potential when you think about it from the medical side of the equation. That's why I say equity crowdfunding. Like, you're buying shares in the research, and it's like, hey, you get X% of anything that's discovered while you're a backer, and just extrapolate that over you're not going to see any immediate ROI, but you think about that over the course of a 30-40 year period. If you were one of the individuals helping to fund these kind of research labs, the probability of them finding something that's valuable is reasonable. But you haven't actually had to put up, you personally haven't had to put up, ridiculous amounts of capital. And I don't know. I think that's going to be the future at some point. But
yeah, Mark Armitage a while back was asking for a laboratory and research equipment, to do his work. I don't know how far he got on that.
yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, the equipment's not, I've researched some of the stuff, like for genetic research, like the equipment is not that expensive. I mean, like, you can fund for between $600,000 to $1 million, $600,000 to $1 million, you can fund a very legit lab.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, for the average individual, that's a lot of capital, but for a group, large group, like, that's not that much money. I'm talking from an investment capital raise perspective, like, that's not that much money.
Yeah.
Compared to what, I mean, even a decade ago, you'd be looking at, 10, 12 million to fund one. And now you're looking at, 600 to $1 million. Like, that's insane when you think about that in terms of the capital requirement drop.
All right, set it up. I'm in.
No, it's something I've thought about, man. It's be very interesting to actually do cap raise stuff for startups. God, so annoying. So obnoxious when you're going to doing road trips to go see angel investors and VCs, man. Ugh, so annoying.
Just constantly throwing you in front of the firing squad.
Yep. Well, the ultimate irony for me is that a significant percentage of quote unquote investors made their money, many of them without, I don't know how they did it, sheer timing, or they're so hyper focused on like one specific niche that you can't like convince them of anything outside of their little bubble. Anything that's doesn't fit inside their bubble is a horrible idea. And it's like, okay. That's why with investor, like traditional investment raising, it's all about like playing the odds that you finally get in front of the one person who gets it, and then okay, here you go, I hand you the money. It's crazy. Quite the undertaking.
Yeah. Well, I grew up on the mission field, and the missionaries have to go around to different churches to ask for support. So they have to present the work that they do to the churches that they go to. And there's some missionaries that don't have like a real exciting work, but it's essential, like a cook or something. So they'll go to to the different churches and say, yeah, I cook for the missionary kids, and they won't get any support because people don't think it's important, you know.
Right. Oh, that little thing I've called, sustenance and remaining alive. No big deal. That'll be fine.
Yeah, they're the kids
They're
anyway.
down in the rainforest. There's some fruit hanging off a tree somewhere.
Yeah, they're kids anyway. They're the kids like I was, you know. It's like, that's not very important, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting.
But you mentioned the fruit. The fruit is awesome, though. I mean, we used to go around as kids, and different times of the years, there's different seasons for different fruit, and we would go, you know, hit all the different trees with a different fruit around throughout the year, and it was awesome. And you know, that's good. I'm talking about really good fruit, fresh. You know, that's not even, you know, right off the tree.
Right.
Jungle Jungle, where are you from?
From the Amazon jungle.
Okay, that's where you live right now.
No, I'm in New Jersey right now.
Oh, okay.
But actually, you know, I talk a lot about the Amazon jungle, but I only spent like a total of 10 years there, and the rest of my 40, 50 years was here in the United States, here and there. But it was my upbringing, my childhood was in the Amazon and between Kansas and Florida and the Amazon. So I'm from Kansas. I used to wear cowboy boots, and until I went to New Jersey, then I wore socks, white socks and sneakers when I was 17.
It's amazing the different worldviews that can be had for all sorts of all the different perspectives. It's interesting to me, you know, having grown up into the country as well. The restricted worldview, let's say, of a lot of the average Americans, like no real appreciation for how good we have it compared
that is
to
the absolute worst. It's tough to even talk to people like that. They don't appreciate a single thing that our ancestors did for us.
Yeah, when you study ancestry, that gets very interesting too. Yeah.
Well, I tell you, what gets me is, you know, with all the stuff, the madness that's going on in America right now. Like, it's amazing to me that it's less than 30% of Americans can even name all three branches of government. And to me, when you really contemplate the significance of that, it's like, and we wonder how we're being played like pawns by the talking heads on TV and the politicians, and how they're just ignoring, like, they're not even hiding their corruption anymore. That's what blows my mind. It's like they're doing all this stuff in plain sight. And
that's just
and they
horrible.
keep getting arrested or keep getting reelected. Like, I think Charlie Rangel finally retired or whatever, but Charlie Rangel has been under indictment from the FBI for years because they arrested him on multiple occasions, but one of them was they raided his place in New York, and he had stacks of bribery cash in his freezer. He got arrested, or he got reelected like 4 times after that arrest and that indictment, but they never prosecuted him. I'm like, hang on, so you busted the guy for bribery? You busted him with the cash in his freezer. A sitting member of Congress is hiding cash in a freezer, and and then he gets reelected 4 more times. Like, what? This is ridiculous.
Well, Rod Blagojevic's the only politician I can ever think of that ever went to jail.
Well, actually, here's the irony. Actually, it was the 4 governors of Illinois in a row. Actually, went to jail. Yeah, But you're right. Most of them just walk free and get around, do whatever they want. It's although it's gonna be kind of interesting. I don't know if y'all saw that old Congressman Swalwell he got removed from the Intelligence Committee today. After his for those of you who don't know, there's some scandals that have come out today, mostly hidden by the mainstream media, but the turns out that this Chinese operative, original name Fang Fang, who went by Christine Fang when she came here to the United States, quote unquote, go to school. Actually, she was a spy, and turns out that she was having sex with all sorts of Democrat politicians.
No, that part I did not hear yet.
Oh yeah, and compromised them. One of which was current Congressman Swalwell.
So you think that they were actually knocking boots together?
Oh yeah, it's FBI surveillance busted them.
Okay.
But she was so back before he became a congressman, she was like his little thing, I guess, and was helping him raise money and all this kind of stuff. She was like one of his biggest bundlers when he ran for Congress. She was putting interns in his office in DC. Yeah, straight up, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I mean, she fled the country because she was identified as a Chinese operative by the FBI.
That is just so funny. I was listening to a clip on that, and this one lady, I forgot where she was from, just gave it the old, we should not be assuming anything. We have no idea if she was really a spy. We don't know if she got any information from Swalwell. I mean, it was just completely pathetic.
Well, a lot of that is lawyer talk. A lot of that is lawyer talk, isn't it? Because it's not a fact until they prove it in court, right?
Yeah, this was like, CNN or MSNBC or something, just over the top stupidity.
Yeah. But, well, I mean, the fact that Dianne Feinstein is still hasn't been expelled from the Senate blows my mind. She had a Chinese spy work for her for 20 years.
Yeah.
20 years.
Wasn't her a limo driver or something?
He served as her driver and her bag man and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, 20 years she had a Chinese spy work for her. You're telling me that one of your closest associates is a Chinese spy. You have made it your mission to improve relationships between the United States and China. You are on record with all sorts of favorable positions on China. And you're going to tell me that you just coincidentally had a Chinese spy work for you for 20 years.
I think that
you're either bought and paid for, or you're so mentally incompetent. The fact that you're a senator of the United States is beyond the pale, and you should be expelled.
I remember yelling at the TV during the Kavanaugh hearing. They said, well, how did this letter get leaked? She literally turns back.
Oh, yeah, I remember seeing that.
Asked the staffer, well, did you leak it? Well, he said he didn't leak it. Well, it wasn't us.
Yeah, I remember. I watched that live. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, I mean, it's like, what?
And then, of course, everyone in the whole audience and on TV naturally would believe her because she just asked the guy, and he said no, and she's not going to lie about it. So they're in the clear. It was magic.
Yep. But I tell you what, the past 4 years especially, but really this past year, I'd say 2019, and I can forget 2020 is almost over. So 2019 and into 2020, I don't know if I've ever seen the level of just straight up political madness as what's been going on this past.
Total madness.
Like, oh crap! I cannot believe I'm having a brain freeze with bug eyes.
Well,
who's the California congressman with the bug eyes who was all about
Schiff.
impeachment? I can't believe we have a brain freeze there.
Oh my god! I knew
Yes,
something that
Congressman
LPG didn't
Schiff.
know.
Oh man, Shifty Schiff. Man, that guy is that dude is either mentally
the
insane.
bug eyes.
He is either insane or just the most categoric liar of all time. I mean, the number of times that I watched him on TV interviews claim adamantly that he had personally seen the evidence that proved beyond all doubt that there was Russian collusion, that there, just insert whatever talking point, like I have seen it personally. And then never, it's like, okay, then here's the moment of truth, bro. Like, show it. Never did. Not one time. Not in the interviews, not after, not during the Mueller investigation, not after the Mueller investigation, not in the impeachment hearings, not after the impeachment. I mean, none of it. Not after the trial, not after the vote. He still kept saying it existed and never showed it. Like, really?
He saw a pretty good imagination, that's for sure.
Well, he also had no idea the identity of the whistleblower. He
of course
had
not.
no clue.
Yeah, except the fact that there's evidence that they literally were in collusion. Yeah, none of that.
Right.
Man, this stuff has just been so mind blowing. Like the level of just straight up propaganda
and the media, the media too.
Yeah, the media manipulation has been, and there's been. You talk about collusion. There has been very obvious, direct coordination and collusion between big tech media, mainstream media, and the political left in the United States. I mean, it's just wow.
They're always on the same talking points too.
I mean, well, not only on the same talking points, they're on verbatim talking points.
Yeah.
I mean, literally verbatim.
I think it was, I don't know if the two stories are related, but I think maybe a handful of hours ago, it was announced that Hunter wasn't under investigation by the FBI.
Yeah, I saw that.
I think it might have been tax related.
Yeah.
Is that related at all to his laptop, or is that something separate?
I don't know, but I do know it's directly related to payments from China.
Okay. I remember fake Jake Tapper saying that it was so sleazy he wasn't even going to talk about it. So,
well, they straight up covered up the Hunter Biden scandal leading up to the election. I mean, what's amazing is I don't know if you listened to any of the Veritas CNN tapes.
Yep, I did hear that one.
I mean, Zucker literally says that they're going to tank the Hunter Biden corruption, and like the fact that man is on camera committing pedophilia is Hunter Biden.
I didn't see it. Did you see it?
I mean, I haven't seen it, but it's been categorically stated beyond like that it is by people who have that it's there, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And there's also like text messages that were released. Like, okay, so this is one of the reasons that there was
one of Obama's daughters too, something like that.
I don't know about that, but no, no, it was his niece.
Oh, his niece, yeah. But somebody else.
He was bitching and moaning and whining in text messages to like another family member that nobody will let him be around the kids anymore. But like some of the stuff they got was pictures of him with his niece. Like, we're talking about compromised, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Him being a freaking pedophile with his niece, who was like 13 years old.
Huh.
And him admitting it in text message and then bitching about the fact that the family won't let him be alone with the kids anymore. And it's like, okay, so we have Joe Biden literally covering up for his pedophile son. Got it. And then there's that's before you even get to the Chinese compromise. This is the thing too. So the honey trap Fang Fang, who got Swalwell. Like oh man, he's getting kicked off the intelligence committee. Okay, let's think about this for a second. So, there's been released video intelligence of, like, this is out, this is public, of Hunter Biden in China committing abusive pedophilia on camera in China. Like, this is public, and like that's not he's not compromised. Are you kidding me?
Where can I find that at?
At this point, it's probably deleted. But no, this came out. This was like 2 weeks before the election.
Okay.
And then it got squashed. But it was on the laptop. It's on his laptop. That's why a lot of people were saying, like, yeah, so Hunter Biden is compromised. He's been the bag man for his pop. They've got, I mean, dude, they had somewhere between $5 and $30 million in cash was given to the Biden clan by the Chinese government. I mean,
so let me ask you this. I kind of always, hearing this was thinking, like, man, Joe really set his son up. He kind of looks at him and says, oh, he's a druggie, he's a loser. He'll never make anything of himself. I'll get him these deals and he'll be rich. I kind of was thinking a little more that I think Joe set his kid up so his kid could set Joe up. Like, do you saw the text message where he said that, Dad painted an effing target on my back? Did you see that one? Yeah.
Well, and him complaining about having to give up all the money to his dad.
Yeah, to his dad, right. I think that Joe was actually the mastermind behind this deal. Just used his kid as the pawn.
Oh, I agree with that. I mean,
yeah.
I agree with that completely. Well, I mean, at this point, he's also got, because you got to think about his other sons, right, weren't necessarily the complete dumpster fires like Hunter. Like,
yeah,
they had some corruption too, but not at least not the public level of collapse as Hunter. So he's like the black sheep. You gotta think about it. To me, your point about Joe being the Godfather. I mean, when you look at the mafia, there's always been that kid, right? that family member who does the dirty work.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the potentially disposable asset. I mean, so I think about it, like, at this point, he's been, kicked out of the military for snorting coke. And I mean, all this, I mean, he got kicked out of the freaking reserves for being a cokehead. I mean, and then literally a couple months later, he's on the board of Burisma, getting paid out the wazoo. I mean, Daddy set that up.
More than likely.
No ifs, ands, buts about it.
Well, I mean, which one's more likely, that or surf monkeys?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Like, there's been all the focus on the Ukraine stuff and Burisma. There's actually way more from China.
Okay.
And obviously China's a bigger player. But, I mean, obviously. I mean, there was all that focus on Ukraine. But it's like, and a lot of that obviously stems from the fact that, Trump was getting impeached over Ukraine. But it's like, it was almost, to me, it was almost like that was a distraction to try and keep the China stuff covered up. Because Trump had started to go after, hey, we need to look into this, right? And then they were doubling down on him, trying to impeach him over it. Or didn't impeach him, tried to remove him over that whole topic. And it's like, you are literally projecting. Here's what I've observed about the Democrats really this past 4 years, but in hardcore, full bore, the past 2 years is it's been a no ifs, ands, or buts projection of their own sins. Yeah. And it's like every single time there's been a quote unquote Trump did X, it's come out that it was literally them that were doing it.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, Trump is compromised. Trump is compromised. Really? So why did the mayor's the dead mayor of Moscow's wife give Hunter Biden $3.5 million in literal, not cash transfer, in literal cash? Oh wait, she's also a hardcore associate of, or was, of Vladimir Putin.
But they had to have known that all this information would be coming out on them, and so that's why they made all the accusations.
Yep,
So
the
that
projection. It was a misdirection, obvious misdirection attempt.
yeah.
I mean, when the Chinese government, the Communist Party of China, is giving you cash, quote unquote, interest-free, non-secured, on paper, literally forgivable loans. Like, here's a bunch of money. You don't have to pay us back. There is no interest, and if you default, it's good. Like, what? And you're giving 30 million? It like added up between like all the different family members that got the money. Like, you got $30 million from the Chinese government that's forgivable, and interest-free loans that are forgivable. You don't have to pay it back. Like, there is no default penalty. What?
You'd think if you had
That's
all
called
that
straight
money,
up, no offense, but bribery. You're
Do you think-
bought.
if you had all that money, you think you'd be able to just hire some in-house IT guy to fix your laptop instead of just dropping it off at some corner store?
that was
Well, I mean,
like,
there's no telling
he
how
drops it.
coked up he was.
Yeah,
He
right.
I mean, dude,
drops it
literally,
off at
he's
the
on video
store.
smoking crack. So I mean, it's not like dealing with the sharpest knife in the drawer, you know.
I know that bring this back to Ukraine for a sec, but I don't remember if it was an audio or if I just saw the transcript of it. But I think Biden was talking to Poroshenko, and Poroshenko told him, "We got bad news. I couldn't find anything on Shokin, but we'll get rid of him anyway." With that call, wasn't that enough to completely debunk the narrative the media was running, saying that no, they fired him because of corruption? Why
It should have
that
been.
not bigger? No, why was that not bigger news?
I mean, if them, that's where the level of
It's the media.
has the. I mean, do we have a new fractured Pravda?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's international. The media is international leftist.
Did
thing.
either of
It's
you
everywhere.
catch that call or see
oh
the
yeah, I
transcript?
know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I mean, beyond that, it's like he literally, he's on camera. It just goes back to the projection, right? Like, Trump was doing the Ukraine deal for personal enrichment, personal gain, all this kind of stuff, like, and abuse of power and all those different things. Yeah. And he was bribing the Ukrainians with weapons. Like, we're not going to give you these weapons. And it's like, okay, so Joe Biden is on camera publicly admitting that if they don't fire him, he will withhold the $1 billion.
Right.
Like, he's on camera stating his objective, stating how he executed it, how he ordered them to do it, the timeline he gave them to do it in, and then the fact that they complied. Like I don't know what in no other in no other context of law would you need anything greater than the full scale admission and method to be disclosed by the suspect to be like found guilty.
No,
It's the media that refuses to cover the facts.
He could have had an argument if he just, if it would have been, I guess, an ulterior motive, saying that, well, this Shokin, they had a bunch of corruption stuff on him, so that was the reason. He could have said that, but with that phone call that happened, if Poroshenko said, no, we couldn't find anything on him, but we'll do it anyway. Yep. He doesn't have an alibi at that point in time.
Yep.
That's the way I see it. I mean, with what Trump did, he could have just simply said, the argument I would have used is said, well, yeah, Joe Biden is a political opponent, but at the same time, I have probable cause to think this guy was up to no good in Ukraine. So, so what if I asked for dirt on him? That's not a big deal, as long as it's not for the purposes that of my reelection, it's completely irrelevant.
Yep. Yeah, that whole deal was just amazing. But that whole the impeachment of Donald J. Trump was, in my opinion, the most epic attempted redirection and projection of your own sins that has ever been executed, at least in modern times. I mean, just the straight up, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We're going to accuse you of what we did and see if we can get people to buy it. I mean, it's.
But no president ever has been treated that way, ever.
No. Well, I don't know if y'all actually read the Mueller report.
No.
I read all 386, whatever it was, pages.
Oh dear God.
That deal was like, I mean, I cannot tell you the number of times throughout that stack of paper it's like, we found nothing. No evidence was found. No evidence was nothing. I mean, it's like over and over and over again, nothing was found for this, nothing was found for that. And I'm like, but fast forward to even to today, and you listen to the talking heads, they still claim that there were, the Mueller report, found things, but they were silenced. And it's like, how many times do you have to state that they didn't find anything?
The thing that gets me, Mueller didn't even know the details of the case with the different companies that were involved.
Literally nothing.
Well, and here's the interesting thing about that. I mean, obviously he was just a pure in name only figurehead, but it's very interesting that there's also strong evidence that he himself is suffering from dementia.
Yeah, I would agree. Jargon, I completely agree with you. I was watching that live and I thought to myself, who is the idiot that put this guy in the stand? He clearly doesn't have the mental faculties to be doing this. They're referencing, you said in this in your report. What? What page is that on? No, I don't know. Well, were you in this meeting? No. Were we in any of these meetings? Very few. I couldn't believe they would put that guy in the stand.
Well, there was no way around it. And I think it's interesting is and in fairness to them, I think they learned their lesson from Mueller in relation to Biden. They kept Biden out of the spotlight as much as possible.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that he was literally in his basement for the majority of the campaign, like, hang on, like post primaries, the man hardly left his basement. That's saying something. I mean, I don't know how much you guys watched all the different compilations of the video. I mean, the one that blew my mind away, and I'm like, okay, Biden beyond all doubt is demented. Yeah. He literally walked off. He's doing a live stream, and he literally walked off camera, and they had to cut to technical difficulties. I mean, he's talking, and he kind of looks off into the distance, and then just people are asking him questions. He's being asked a question, right? And he just walks off camera, and one of his assistants runs towards the camera and shuts it off, and they cut scene, technical difficulties. I'm like, the potential president of the United States just walked off camera in the middle of being asked a question on a live stream, and then another live stream, he was talking in the opposite direction to the camera, and his handlers were pointing him toward no, this is the camera over here, this is the camera, and he's like, huh?
That's worse than a narcoleptic.
I'm like, oh my. And the one where he literally fell asleep on camera in the middle of an interview, that one blew me away too. I don't know if y'all saw that. That one got scrubbed pretty quick.
He fell asleep.
He literally, did you guys see? You know what I'm talking about? You when y'all see that?
I thought I did, but I don't remember if they said
it got scrubbed.
Fall asleep.
It got scrubbed so quick. Because I tried to point out, show it. I wanted to send it to my family members and stuff to get a laugh, and it was like gone. It got erased from YouTube and everything. But yeah, no, he literally dozed off in the middle. His wife sitting next to him, and like the reporter starts at like asks his wife some questions, and he literally is dozing off, and she like elbows him.
Yeah.
That's good. That's really
Oh.
good.
So I'm like, this just happened. I tell you what, I don't now, but towards the end there, I was feeling bad for him. I'm like, okay, the man is clearly demented and he's being completely taken advantage of. And at this point, I still feel he's being taken advantage of, but I think he did it from a conscious perspective. Like,
Yes, I think he did too. I
yep,
don't really
I'm
feel bad
losing
for
it,
him.
but hey, whatever. Like, let's do this. I'm that corrupt. Let's go.
Yeah, I don't think he even wanted to run for president, but they didn't have anybody to run for president. Or at least not anybody they wanted.
I kind of thought that he was a little bit meant to lose, but they just threw him up there because they had to put somebody up. They didn't want to damage any future superstar, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then go for broke. But
Right.
And
throw
then
a Hail
and then
Mary.
they knew
If-
they weren't going to win. They knew they weren't going to win, so they just,
hey,
depended
don't-
on the fraud.
don't let's not talk about that.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
okay.
agree.
We'll
I
talk about it
agree.
in code. Yeah, we are living in the era of Big Brother now. Well, I agree with you. what you're
Jargon,
saying
we
there.
all know what you're thinking. We're just not going to say it. We're using
But-
ESP.
Yes, but yeah, I tell you what, if the Democrats had half a brain, they would have run Tulsi Gabbard.
Yes.
She's
She's not as bad. She's definitely decent.
well. I mean, she's still pretty left, but I mean,
Yeah,
But that would be
in-
a legitimate. That would be a legitimate president-elect, though.
In
Yep,
the context of her being like a somewhat sane person, she's decent.
yes,
That would be
of all of the candidates that they put up. By
right.
far the only, but
Yeah.
here's the thing, I'm talking about in terms of them like actually having a chance to legitimately win is I think Tulsi Gabbard would have given Trump a serious legitimate run for his money. She's dynamic, not
She
nuts,
would have. She
and
would have represented the Democratic Party.
Yep.
Decently,
and she would have the female vote would have been hardcore for her. The younger left would have felt energized, and I think she actually would have given Trump a very legitimate challenge. And I'm talking from a legitimacy perspective, not what we're dealing with now.
Yeah.
And I remember when first time I saw her and I was watching all the Democrat primaries, I'm like, please don't let her win. Like I'm really, I kid you not, I was like, I hope the establishment decides to not back her. And of course they did. They literally, not only did they not back her, they literally did everything in their power to force her out. And I'm like, I was cracking up when that happened. I'm like, this is too good. The Democrats really are this stupid. They're literally ousting their only real shot at legitimate victory. This is
they're
priceless.
too far loony. They're too far loony. They haven't. They're not even Democrat Party no more. They just went off the head.
I mean, and then you get Eric Fartswell. When he farted on camera, that was the best.
That was good. I watched
Oh
that
my
last week.
goodness, you can't recreate that. Like, and I'll tell you, all the people that did the faux infrared and like and did the After Effects fart cloud. Oh my goodness, that I have not. I laughed so hard from that. Did you guys see that?
I did not see that.
No, I
one.
didn't see it.
Oh my! I guess I hope that's still on YouTube because that was one I have not. I laughed so hard at that. It was whoever took the time to do that post production is worthy of a Oscar.
Stuff like that is never a waste of time. That is my opinion. Did you see the one where Jerry Nadler pooped his pants?
Oh yeah,
Oh god, that's tasty. I just love that one. The way he does that, he's not sure he should walk back. Should he exit stage right? Should he kind of hang out for a little bit? So good.
Man, it's just been the fart cloud has been. Oh wait, here it is. Okay, here we go. Oh yeah. This is it. Hang on.
You can take off the Hunter Biden stuff, but you better not get rid of farts well.
Okay, here we go. All right, I found it. A little up clip of it. Man, there was stuff that was like put to music. Man, it was too good. It's just a lot of the good ones are gone, but there we go. Thermal infrared of Eric Swalwell's fart on hardball. Here we go. Alex Jones watching it's too good.
Oh God.
Ukrainians help them cheat an election.
Hang on. We gotta oops. Hang on. Let's
And here it is.
Taxpayer dollars to ask the Ukrainians to help them cheat an election. And the complaint.
Yes.
Man.
All right,
Can't-
Maddox, how many times have you watched that?
Oh
Be
man.
honest.
Dude, I first saw it on Twitter, and of course it goes into like instant repeat. I laughed, and people did like multiple variations of that too. Man, some people put it to music. I mean, I laughed so hard. I kid you not. That when that came out, I probably belly laughed for a solid like 10 minutes. I'm just like, I have not laughed this hard in a while when that came out. Oh. That was too good. You can't recreate that kind of thing. But
Well,
yes,
I'm probably gonna.
Nadler crapping his pants was good. But I tell you what, the other thing of Nadler, and being completely out of touch. Did you see the guy confront him on the street in DC and ask him about Antifa and what was going on in Seattle?
I did. I think he just said it wasn't real. It was fake news and it was exaggerated.
Yep. And it's like, here's the thing: the fact that man is still in power is mind blowing. He is clearly demented as well. Like clearly. Although, did y'all watch the impeachment hearings?
Just snippets. Not really.
Okay, there were multiple instances where he was asleep during the hearings. I'm talking out cold. And like people would like call him out. Like I see assistants would come over and like wake him up. I mean, he's like nodding off, jerking back to consciousness in the middle. It's like, okay, hang on. So you are heading up the House impeachment hearings, and you're literally falling asleep during testimony.
Well, you said it before. They get elected somehow.
Well, now we know. I'm not supposed to talk about that. Now we know how
I'm
to get
sorry.
elected.
God, what am I doing? I broke my own rule. Oh,
Now
geez.
now we understand. Now we.
Jungle, I owe you an apology. Well, look, I probably got to get going here. I got to work in the morning, but
Yeah, I gotta get up too.
I will ask one more thing. This is driving me nuts too. And I'll try to make it quick, okay? This is an argument I've been hearing. We all agree right now that dogs produce dogs, cats produce cats, and they're never going to evolve out of their lineages, right?
Yeah.
Under evolution. But if you go back in time, a dog was a non-dog, correct?
In evolution theory, yeah.
Yes. So, I guess we don't know exactly what it been. We can call it just a widget, right?
Yeah, they're
Why
all
is-
missing. All the common ancestors are missing.
Yeah, they're all missing. I'm just wondering. I'm trying to follow their line of logic because I've seen every one of these guys is all saying the exact same thing now. They're like, no, they're always going to be dogs. They're just going to be a more specialized kind of dog. You'll never out-evolve your lineage. But
Well,
how
they think
exactly-
it's a canine. They think it's a canine. They think dogs and cats at one time were the same thing.
That's right. They would have been something other than a cat or a dog. They would have been. You could just throw whatever name you want on. Kind of
Obviously,
animal. right?
Because the cats and dogs are very, very different.
Right, we'll just call it a widget kind of animal. So somewhere along the line of it being a single cell organism on its way to a dog or a whale or a cat was a widget kind, right?
Yeah.
So why do they not all call them widget kinds right now, since you can never evolve past your lineage?
Well,
This
'cause-
does not make sense at all.
That's
Yeah.
just yet another
it kind of
suspension of all rationality in relation to the plausibility of evolution.
And do these people still say that dinosaurs evolved into birds?
Yes.
Or sorry, birds.
Yeah.
Or sorry, birds. Yeah, I said that wrong.
yeah.
So
even
then,
though they
why
both
do they call
existed
them
at the
bird
same
kind?
time.
Why are they not reptiles?
Because some of the reptiles have bird hips and some of them don't, and it was the one that doesn't have the bird hip that evolved into the bird.
Yeah, but I'm saying, regardless of that, they said that you cannot evolve past your lineage. Reptiles will always produce reptiles. Dogs will always produce dogs. That's what they're saying. They're all agreeing, to my understanding.
No,
how
but
did-
I think at some point it used to be something else. I mean, they have to, if they say that everything evolved from a bacteria or amoeba, then they have to say that it changes from one thing to another, and that's what they can't prove.
They have to, right? But I'm saying for a PhD, right, who has a very high level of education, this proves why you need philosophy to do science, because that absolutely makes zero sense whatsoever. Anyone could follow this logic to realize that's stupid.
Well, here's the thing, and it's talked about by a lot of folks on the intelligent design creation side of all these different guys, I say guys, researchers and supposed academic experts. They're hyper focused in whatever their little niche is. And they're all conditioned to think that all of these conundrums that you're talking about are solved, but somebody else did it. And they operate from under the assumption that these paradoxes and all these different issues are, oh, somebody else already solved that one.
Yeah.
And they don't even actually go and do the research for it. They don't, and there's multiple folks. Michael Behe as an example. Like, one of the reasons that he ended up becoming an advocate for ID was I forget which was some question about some molecular process, right? And like, oh, I guess somebody solved that. And then he started doing like research on it and being like, hang on, there's literally no papers on this. And like went and like spent all this time trying to find the answer to whatever the specific topic that he was like, wait a minute, nobody actually solved this? And then he finally found some reference from like a paper from the 60s where they actually hadn't solved it and admitted they hadn't solved it. But now different papers that were quoting this 60s paper as being the solution to this other problem, they were quoting it as being the solution. When he actually found the paper, it was them literally stating they hadn't solved the problem.
Yeah.
But it was being quoted as the solution to this problem.
Well, they do that quite a bit. They
Oh,
do
yeah.
that quite a lot, yeah.
All the time. And it's like same thing with the evolutionary biologists think the chemists have solved abiogenesis and vice versa. It's like, hang on, nobody solved the like macroevolution problem. Oh wait, yeah, somebody did way back in the day. Like, yeah, it's like, no, you didn't. And then the more information we're finding now, it's like, hang on, the requirements that you have to account for are getting massive, and you haven't even solved the little ones, and now you're being deluged with even bigger problems.
Did you ever hear the story of people that were setting their clock by each other?
No.
And wondering why the time was off? Because they were setting their own clocks by each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, to me, it really blows the mind. That's why I always get so fascinated and entertained by people like talk trash about like, well, you're not a PhD, you go write up, you don't have any papers, like you can't have an opinion. I'm like, yeah, so I've gone and read papers and I understand the problem and I read what they're saying. And I know that there's another paper that I read the day before from that literally says they haven't solved the problem that this other paper is referencing as having been solved. Like, so there's a paper that was published this year that says they're still trying to solve X, and you're over here claiming that X is solved. So who's in contradiction? Because you're literally telling each other the literal antithesis of each other, and nobody's challenging this. And like, what? Like, how does that make any sense?
It's got to be the worst scientific field ever in existence that ever was.
It's kind of like Diet Coke.
Well, I tell you what, that guy is still doubling down on the dumbassery that is his positions. It's amazing.
And he's an engineer. He programs things.
He is he has a bachelor's degree in computer engineering and a master's in software engineering. Currently, per his own admission or his own statement, he is currently employed by the United States military as a programmer. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's an interesting character. But it's pretty funny. He if y'all haven't seen this, you should go and check out Trinity Radio, Braxton Hunter.
Yeah.
He's in a couple of videos recently where he did his questions for atheists. And of course, Godless Engineer has responded to both of them. And it's hilarious. He's also been a case in point for Braxton to respond to. It's so funny. And like all of the caveats that Braxton's done in his video, like his questions, like, okay, so I am not asking this. Okay. I'm asking this over here. I am not asking, insert talking point. And then Godless Engineer in each instance has literally responded to the caveat. And like, I'm not asking you this. I'm asking you this over here. And he responds to the exact opposite.
I actually coincidentally started that video today. Did not get to finish it, but
oh, it's priceless.
Yeah.
I'm just cracking up. Like, dude, how many? So all the times that I've said I made the cracks like in the Droid C video when I put in the Chris Tucker do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth clip? It's like
That was funny.
people wonder why. Like all the atheists were so mad in comments about that video, and I'm like, do you not understand the reason that I'm putting some of these little jabs in here? It's stuff like the Braxton video. Like, how many times do you have to issue the caveat before they respond to the caveat and not realize that they're being idiots? And it's like, good Lord. It's like, you have to give you full scale diagrams of here are the rules. Here's what we're not saying.
that wouldn't help.
But anyway. Well, folks, I think this time I'm going to call it a night. I got to get up in the morning myself. Appreciate everybody coming. Jungle, you got any closing words? And John, you got anything you want to say before we wrap up?
I got nothing. When's the next one?
Oh man, who knows? We'll do it.
When are you gonna take on Dillahunty?
Probably never. As far as I know, he is going to. I think he will refuse in perpetuity.
Okay.
To do a debate with me.
So what happened on the first one?
What
really. Why didn't it happen?
He got really butthurt that two things. One, I called him a charlatan, and it got him all riled up. And then two, I started a GoFundMe account because I wanted to take off work for a couple days to prepare to go after him. And he used that as an excuse. So it's very interesting. So publicly, he on his Twitter account, all this kind of stuff, he went after me for wanting to take advantage of his name and all this kind of crap. Privately, in both direct messages on Twitter and multiple emails I got from him, it was all personal. It had absolutely nothing to do with the money and everything to do with me calling him a charlatan.
Okay.
And so I think now he's going to refuse to debate me. But
Have you seen the video What Do You Meme put together on him?
Oh yes, the Dillahunty Dodge.
So good. I've watched that. I've had to have watched that 4 or 5 times now.
Yeah, the Dillahunty Dodge is priceless. I was cracking up at that one. That's yeah, it's very true, very true. Yeah, I mean, I put him on private, but that day with the Dillahunty, I did 2 raw streams calling his ass out. I mean, I went off hardcore for like 20 minutes. I ended up calming down and I put him on private, but yeah, he's a joke. I've actually thought about running a crowdfunding campaign specifically to pay him to debate me.
That's what I would have said too. I mean, honestly, he got worked so badly in that debate between David Wood and that one with Cosmic Skeptic.
Oh yeah.
I do not, if that ever happened to me, I would hide under a rock. I would not ever do it again.
I don't even know why any of these atheists are not hiding under a rock.
Well, here's the thing with Dillahunty. He's an expert dodge artist. There's no doubt about that. Expert.
I'm not
dodge.
convinced of that.
However, he's only an expert at that when he has control of the environment. So in relation to, and there's a secondary piece, but that first point is made on his show, he is an expert dodge artist because he dodges, makes up creative, flowery ways to make his opponent look like an idiot, and then they hang up on him before they can actually issue a full-scale rebuttal to his position. In the debates, he dodges a lot.
Guzman called him the other day, didn't he? Guzman? Wasn't it?
Did he? I didn't see that. I'll check that out.
Yeah.
But in context of his debates, very often, I mean, think about it. The majority of his debates he's done, he's like on Modern Day Debate and other ones, he has conversations with theologians, and all they do is run around on, theoretical philosophy stuff.
He got really triggered. He got triggered because Guzman called him and was telling him about, what was he talking about? Talking about something, but it was something he couldn't answer.
Well, and Dillahunty hates being laid bare of being ignorant on different points. And yeah, anyway, yeah, it's a dumpster fire. Anyway, all right, folks. Well, we're gonna call it a evening. I gotta get some sleep. I appreciate everybody hanging out with us late night, and hope you enjoyed. And as always, you won't want to miss tomorrow. I will be publishing the Annihilation of Standing for Truth. Should be a fun one.
Jeez.
And yeah, should be fun. And then I'm also either late tomorrow or maybe the day after. I'm going to publish another one on. It was very entertaining. Destruction of an atheist at like 3:00 in the morning over on Praise's channel. We had a very fun back and forth. That guy was the epitome of wow. It was amazing. I got this guy to admit all those different things that not only did he not know, he also claimed had zero relevance to the existence of God, and that he had no time to actually research them. But he knew beyond doubt that God did not exist.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like he thought it out logically then.
Like, wow. So you're admitting you don't have a clue what I'm saying. You're admitting this, but you're claiming that therefore but none of this has any bearing on the existence of God.
It's not his field.
Magical. It's crazy. But anyway, like I said, folks, have a great night. Enjoy yourselves. And as you consider the reasons for your existence, make sure the conclusions you reach are logical, plausible, and probable. Have a good one, y'all.
Later.
Amen.